It's really changed my perspective on everything. I'm actually at a point where I'm just feeling really content with myself and I'm really excited about my plans. I'm just really feeling awesome. Hi, ladies. My name's Donna. I live in Rockbank in Victoria. I've been separated and a single parent for the last 12 years after having a 17-year relationship. Everything came tumbling down when we decided to have our first child. So it took a long time to get pregnant, and over the course of the pregnancy, I ended up going beyond full term to 42 weeks, and my labour didn't go very well, and my son was very distressed and got very ill and ended up in the neonatal intensive care unit for 5 days, and he passed away, and that had a devastating effect on me and my partner. But I carried a lot of guilt about that for a long time because I didn't want to have a Caesar. I wanted to have a natural birth, and I felt like I contributed to that catastrophic outcome. So also my partner was completely inept in getting me to the hospital, even though we'd rehearsed doing that beforehand. He missed the entrance. We had to go around the block a few times. It was just complete disaster, and I was really in a lot of pain. Labour had come on suddenly and really violently, and he wasn't there for me at the beginning of the labour. So things were advancing really quickly, and I couldn't get into the hospital. Instead of him getting me a wheelchair, he dragged me through the front door. I was almost on my knees. It was terrible. So the upshot of that was he became quite depressed and found it very difficult to cope. I was adamant, after a period of time, I was getting older. I was in my early 40s already, and I wanted to have a family, so I was quite pushy in terms of having another try. It had taken me 5 years to get pregnant in the first place, so I was worried about time ticking, and lo and behold, the first try we got pregnant, and instead of him being happy and supportive, he became very negative, very depressed and anxious about something else going wrong. So I didn't realise the depths of his despair, and I found out down the track that how badly he wasn't coping at all, and he ended up having an affair with somebody from where he worked. So when my son was 3 months old, I found out about the affair. There were a few clues, and I sort of went into detective mode, and I ended up tracking down the woman who was involved. It was a really terrible time. It was really a crisis, actually, and I went really off the rails. So I had a young baby. I was studying. I was trying to complete a PhD, and I was also working. And he dropped out. He was not working. He was having counselling and so on. So he just wasn't there. So we tried to sort of make it work for a few years because I thought that was what I should do because we had a child. But I ended up having to leave the relationship, and I moved closer to my parents. It was just a really, really difficult time, and I look back at it now. I was racked with guilt. I was very, very angry at him for not stepping up and being an adult. I was devastated by the affair, so I blamed him for everything that went wrong. It also blamed myself for my choices in terms of the pregnancy in the first place. So yeah, it was just a really difficult time. I was very negative towards new relationships, very negative towards myself. So here we are, like 12 years on. I haven't had any significant relationships in my life. I've got my son who's 14. Was in a really, really bad space after lockdown, working from home for a couple of years. Started thinking about well, where to from here, because my son's 14 now, he's growing up, he's got a reasonably good relationship with his dad now, but I'm still really bitter and angry towards my ex, and was quite sort of demeaning towards him and had a bad attitude around my son. It just got to a point where I tried dating again. It just ended up being disastrous, just jumping into one toxic relationship after another. I got very depressed as well, couldn't concentrate on work, didn't want to get out of bed, basically. Was trawling through Facebook, looking at dating advice, trying to work out what's the best way to snare a bloke, and what are the things I needed to say, when should I text, all that kind of stuff, which is just absolutely rubbish. And then I came across Fiona May and thought, well, what have I got to lose? I'll book a call. And it was really, really hard for me. It was a really big leap of faith, but I ended up signing up to do the program. And I have to say, it's the best thing I could have ever done for myself, because it really helped me step through all of the things that were driving me and what the patterns were that were influencing my decisions that I make now, and those patterns that came from childhood. And I realised that a lot of myself was my father. So he wasn't well educated. He was a really good man and worked really hard, but he worked 7 days a week. He was driven to make money, and my mum didn't work, so he was exhausted most of the time, and he liked a drink occasionally. So my mum would always make sure us kids were really quiet and didn't disturb him, so she was sort of like the people pleaser. And he pushed me to study and do well at school, which I went to uni. I completed a higher degree. I'm really grateful that I had that drive to do it. But at the end of the day, I'm living up to his expectations, and I was forgetting to look after myself and do things for me. And these things sort of shaped how I viewed relationships should be. So somebody had to wear the pants in the relationship and go out and earn the money, and the other person just took a back seat, basically. And that's really how it was with my ex and I. I probably wasn't a very nice person to be around at the time. I didn't leave a lot of space in the relationship for him to step up and contribute. I was always making all of the decisions, financial decisions, everything really, when we were going to have a family, if we were going to get married or not get married, where we were going to live. So I ended up really being exhausted by the whole thing, because by the time the relationship broke down, I was still trying to finish my PhD. I was working full time, and I had a small child and was being a solo parent, so sort of had everything going on at once. So the program really highlighted for me what those patterns were and how I could actually go about changing how I viewed things. So it really gives you a lot of insight, and I was able to look at things from a different perspective and really be able to see how my ex wasn't having his needs met in the relationship. Neither of us were, but it was all I could only see it from my perspective at the time, and that he wasn't living up to my expectations. That in itself has been just so valuable, and I've realised that I am worthy of love, and I've been terribly hard on myself and really driving myself really hard to do everything by myself. I have this awful curse of being a perfectionist, which has really is an Achilles heel. So it can freeze you in terms of it stops you from getting things done in case you do it wrong, you make a mistake. So I realised that I don't have to stick to the old patterns, and I won't really be disappointing my father if I take a different path. So I've got some complex financial situation where I've got a few properties and some shares, but I don't have a lot of cash flow. So I was really stuck in terms of being able to get things done that I wanted to do, renovations, travel. So what I've realised now is it's okay if I want to sell one of the houses. So my dad is not going to be disappointed. I've had a mindset that you never sell an investment property. But if I do that, and I'm going down that track now, that I'm going to free myself up financially, that will allow me to do other projects. I'll be able to do my dream of getting my camper van and travelling around Australia. So that is the next ticket item for me, and it's going to be fantastic. I'm making plans now. So I've set goals which are for me, and they're not driven by anyone else's expectations. So it's really great. It's really changed my perspective on everything. I've probably smoothed off the hard edges that I had. I'm not so hard on my son. He's a teenager, and I just have a much more relaxed attitude in how I deal with him. We're not butting heads as much. I mean, it does still happen, but I'm not getting triggered and flying off the handle like I was before. I'm actually at a point where I'm just feeling really content with myself, and I'm really excited about my plans, and whether or not they include a man in there, that's not at the top of the list for me at the moment, but I'm just really feeling awesome. So I'm sure that somewhere down the track I will bump into someone that will be right for me, and just see how that goes. Yeah, so I'm feeling really brave, I'm feeling really bold, and I'm back to being my old badass self, but in a good way.